Hello everyone, you're tuned in to Whispers of Turkish Stars. Settle in, because we've gathered everything you want to know, and a little more. If you enjoy this kind of deep dive into the moments everyone is whispering about, make sure you subscribe and share so you don't miss what comes next. Tonight's story circles around a moment that rippled far beyond a sidewalk outside a private venue. Actor Gökberk Yildirim, usually measured in calm with cameras, drew a firm line when he felt a boundary had been crossed with his wife, the talented and beloved Cemre Arda. What happened took only minutes, but the shockwave traveled fast through timelines and chat groups, and one sentence from Gökberk's mouth lit up the internet: "They can't treat my wife like that." Here's what those close to the scene say. After an intense week on set and a handful of late-night rehearsals, Cemre accepted an invitation to a quiet celebration. She arrived looking elegant but unmistakably exhausted, hoping to duck in, say hello, and leave early. Outside, a small cluster of tabloid reporters waited, their cameras grazing the dim lights, their voices rising in hopeful unison each time a car door opened. Cemre, who is known for answering thoughtfully and keeping the focus on her projects, offered a soft smile but kept moving. She didn't want a spotlight on a night that wasn't about publicity. The questions, however, did not thin out. Instead, they multiplied. Some were routine, about upcoming scenes, a brand collaboration everyone had heard rumors about, but a few were sharp, personal, and relentless. Witnesses say it was the rapid echo of those questions, colliding and stacking atop each other, that made the air feel tight. The cameras pressed closer. Cemre paused, then attempted a polite decline, asking for understanding. She looked tired, and the kind of tired that no makeup can hide. While a couple of voices fell quiet, others only grew more curious, as if her hesitation was a door opening rather than a quiet request for space. Within seconds, tension spiked. You can see it in the clips that began to circulate before the night was even over, Cemre moving toward her car with a sense of urgency, her eyes searching for the handle, a hint of distress crossing her face as a fresh round of questions came barreling in. There is audio from one angle unclear, grainy, suggesting a verbal clash, not a full argument, but a moment of discord that made the crowd shift its weight. It was quick. It was uncomfortable. And it was enough. When the dust settled and the car finally pulled away, the story didn't end. If anything, it began. Hours later, or perhaps even at the curb depending on who you ask, Gökberk's patience snapped into conviction. Behind closed doors or under the cool streetlight, accounts differ, he made himself understood. He wasn't shouting, they say, but there was a hard edge that cut through every syllable: "You can't treat my wife like that." Everyone has a threshold. It wasn't an outburst just for show. It was a statement, a boundary, and a warning wrapped in composure. That single sentiment traveled at a speed no car could. It became screenshots, captions, headlines, and, eventually, a rallying cry. Fans clipped the audio and paired it with photos of the couple smiling on red carpets, holding hands on set breaks, laughing during charity events. In a matter of hours, a private discomfort turned into a public conversation about respect, limits, and the rules that should govern the small but potent space between celebrity and press. What made this different was not that a star pushed back, but who pushed back and how. Gökberk is widely regarded as someone who treats journalists with respect, even when the questions get prickly. He knows the game and usually plays it well. But nearly everyone who knows him will tell you his calm has one exception: when it comes to Cemre, courtesy isn't a suggestion, it's essential. This time, he didn't brush it off. He drew a line and placed himself squarely on the side of his partner. As the internet churned, two main currents formed. The first was empathy's supporters insisting that fame does not dissolve a person's right to choose when to answer. They wrote variations of the same idea over and over. Being in the spotlight doesn't make you public property. The second was reflection, voices from inside the media admitting that the hunger for the headline can lure even seasoned professionals into pressing too hard. The algorithm rewards the first angle, the first phrase, the first flicker of emotion, and sometimes ethics get lost in the chase. And where was Cemre in all this? Silent, at least publicly. Those who have worked with her say she was shaken, maybe more than she let on. She felt the strangeness of having a simple wish for solitude interpreted as a story all by itself. But she didn't want it to balloon into a public feud. That's not her. She prefers to connect the dots through her roles, her scripts, her rehearsals, and the discipline that brought her here in the first place. The message from her inner circle is clear: she wants to tune out the noise and tune into the work. Meanwhile, the praise for Gökberk's stance grew. Fans called it protective without being incendiary, firm without being reckless. They applauded the way he chose his words and the strength behind the restraint. More than a few celebrities, away from microphones and quiet enough to be honest, admitted they've experienced similar scenes but often swallow their frustration to avoid escalating the moment or risking a reputation for being difficult. In hushed conversations and private messages, they thanked him for saying aloud what they have long felt. Behind newsroom doors, the incident became an agenda item. Not everywhere, not universally, but in enough places to make a difference. Some editors, according to whispers that leaked out, gathered their teams to address tone and tactics. They asked for sensitivity when someone clearly signals no. They reminded their crews that a story earned with patience ages better than one forced at the curb. There were warnings handed down, and there were notes posted on the bulletin board about how to approach a star who looks like they haven't slept in 2 days. As days turned into a week, a new narrative took shape. Maybe the relationship between the press and the people they cover needs a fresh blueprint. Advisors pitched moderation. Publicists asked for clearer protocols at private events. A handful of reporters, defending their own side, pointed out that they too face harsh words in closed doors, and that the relationship will only improve with mutual understanding. Nobody is an island in this industry, everyone is a tide pulling on someone else. Sources close to Gökberk say that what kept gnawing at him after that night wasn't only what happened, but how often it happens. He sees the pattern. How actresses, especially, can be cornered by gossipy curiosity dressed up as curiosity. How the pressure to capture a reaction can turn a person into a headline before they step off the curb. He wants, they say, a shift, not a war. A recognition that being visible doesn't erase the right to choose when to speak and when to leave the scene quietly. In the days that followed, Cemre moved with more caution. Not because she is fragile. Her colleagues will tell you she's the first to arrive and the last to give up, but because she learned something from the sharpness of that night. She declined a couple of gatherings. She took comfort in the way her co-stars checked in on her with small messages and simple gestures that didn't demand explanations. And she kept her eyes on the scripts ahead, determined that the next time her name rose to the top of the feed, it would be for a performance, not a scuffle with the sidewalk. The couple, for their part, presented a united calm. They were seen grabbing coffee, ducking into a rehearsal space, returning to a set that knows them both well. No grand speeches, no fiery threats, just the kind of quiet that speaks louder than 1,000 comment threads. And yet, the story didn't fade entirely, because every element of it touches something bigger. It isn't only about two people who love each other. It's about a culture built on access and the price we pay when curiosity forgets its manners. When Gökberk's words continued to circulate, a handful of veteran reporters offered their own take. They insisted that the job requires persistence and sometimes produces pushback, and that emotions run high when deadlines and expectations collide. But even they conceded that the balance has to be recalibrated. No one wants a profession defined by the worst habits of its most hurried moments. The sensible path, they agreed, begins with respect and ends with better stories told without bruises. Talk to anyone who tracks these patterns and they'll tell you the same thing: competition has never been sharper. The pressure to land the first impression, the first clip, the first shareable angle can pull good people into bad decisions. It starts with a single extra question and ends with a scene that overshadows the very work everyone claims to care about. There is a growing chorus in the industry suggesting a simple proposition: on long days, on special nights, on steps outside places meant for celebration, maybe the cameras can step back a pace and let the moment breathe. Whether last week will prove a turning point is still an open question, but Gökberk's calm defiance has already tilted the conversation. He didn't swing wildly. He stood still and spoke clearly, and because of who he is to Cemre, and who they are together, people listened. Some felt emboldened, some felt stung, and many felt something in between: a recognition that these lines are not theoretical. They are human. Through it all, a message attributed to Cemre began to circulate among friends and colleagues. She wasn't trying to score points, she said. She wasn't personalizing it beyond her right to breathe on a night that should have given her that freedom. She simply asked to be seen the way she tries to see others. Let me be discussed for my craft, not for the moments I choose silence. That, more than any press release or polished post, explains why she typically sidesteps drama and keeps her attention on the work that brought her here. As for Gökberk, his line in the sand remains. Insiders say he will not tolerate disrespect, especially when it targets the person he walks beside. His fans call it measured strength, the kind of protection that doesn't roar but doesn't retreat either. In the comments, people noted the clarity of his stance and wondered aloud why boundaries are so controversial in the first place. They framed it as a question not only about a couple's privacy, but about basic care in a culture that runs on speed. The final act of this chapter, at least for now, is a recalibration in motion. Publicists are comparing notes. Editors are testing new guidelines. Actors are reconsidering where they stand and how they'll respond next time a microphone is pressed too close. It's incremental and imperfect, but it feels like movement. Maybe the next encounter outside a velvet rope will be softer. Maybe the next tired smile will be enough to send everyone home. And for Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda, life continues in the way it often does for people who have built something steady together. Work calls. Scripts arrive. Schedules reshape. They show up, hand in hand or side by side, letting time do what time does best, dampen noise and sharpen focus. The incident lingers in the chatter, but it does not define them. What defines them is what always has: their work, their grace under pressure, and the quiet loyalty that made a single sentence echo as loudly as it did. You've been watching Whispers of Turkish Stars. If this story drew you in, make sure you're subscribed and share the video with those who follow the same threads. We'll keep listening, we'll keep asking the right questions, and we'll keep telling the stories that matter without losing sight of the people at the center. Until next time, take care and stay curious.